Welcome to Global Bible Reading. The Gospel according to Luke.
Luke 8. Soon after this, Jesus was going through towns and villages, telling the good news about God's kingdom. His 12 apostles were with him, and so were some women who had been healed of evil spirits and all sorts of diseases. One of the women was Mary Magdalene, who once had 7 demons in her. Joanna, Susanna, and many others had also used what they owned to help Jesus and his disciples. Joanna's husband, Chuza, was one of Herod's officials. When a large crowd from several towns had gathered around Jesus, he told them this story.
A farmer went out to scatter seed in a field. While the farmer was doing it, some of the seeds fell along the road and were stepped on or eaten by birds. Other seeds fell on rocky ground and started growing, but the plants did not have enough water and soon dried up. Some other seeds fell where thorn bushes grew up and choked the plants. The rest of the seeds fell on good ground, where they grew and produced 100 times as many seeds.
When Jesus had finished speaking, he said,
"If you have ears, pay attention."
Jesus' disciples asked him what the story meant, so he answered,
"I have explained the secrets about God's kingdom to you, but for others I can only use stories. These people look, but they don't see, and they hear, but they don't understand." This is what the story means. The seed is God's message, and the seeds that fell along the road are the people who hear the message. But the devil comes and snatches the message out of their hearts, so that they will not believe and be saved. The seeds that fell on rocky ground are the people who gladly hear the message and accept it, but they don't have deep roots, and they believe only for a little while. As soon as life gets hard, they give up. The seeds that fell among the thorn bushes are also people who hear the message, but they are so eager for riches and pleasures that they never produce anything. Those seeds that fell on good ground are the people who listen to the message and keep it in good and honest hearts. They last and produce a harvest. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a bowl or under a bed. A lamp is always put on a lampstand so that people who come into a house will see the light. There is nothing hidden that will not be found. There is no secret that will not be well known. Pay attention to how you listen. Everyone who has something will be given more, but people who have nothing will lose what little they think they have.
Jesus' mother and brothers went to see him, but because of the crowd they could not get near him. Someone told Jesus,
"Your mother and brothers are standing outside and want to see you."
Jesus answered,
My mother and my brothers are those people who hear and obey God's message.
One day Jesus and his disciples got into a boat, and he said,
"Let's cross the lake."
They started out, and while they were sailing across, he went to sleep. Suddenly a windstorm struck the lake, and the boat started sinking. They were in danger, so they went to Jesus and woke him up.
Master, we're about to drown."
Jesus got up and ordered the wind and waves to stop. They obeyed, and everything was calm. Then Jesus asked the disciples,
"Don't you have any faith?"
But they were frightened and amazed. They said to each other,
"Who is this? He can give orders to the wind and the waves, and they obey him."
Jesus and his disciples sailed across Lake Galilee and came to shore near the town of Gerasa. As Jesus was getting out of the boat, he was met by a man from that town. The man had demons in him. He had gone naked for a long time and no longer lived in a house, but in the graveyard. The man saw Jesus and screamed. He kneeled down in front of him and shouted,
"Jesus, Son of God in heaven, what do you want with me? I beg you not to torture me."
He said this because Jesus had already told the evil spirit to go out of him. The man had often been attacked by the demon, and even though he had been bound with chains and leg irons and kept under guard, he smashed whatever bound him. Then the demon would force him out into lonely places. Jesus asked the man,
"What is your name?"
He answered,
My name is Lots.
He said this because there were lots of demons in him. They begged Jesus not to send them to the deep pit, where they would be punished. On a hillside not far from there, a large herd of pigs was feeding. So the demons begged Jesus to let them go into the pigs, and Jesus let them go. Then the demons left the man and went into the pigs. The whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and drowned. When the men taking care of the pigs saw this, they ran to spread the news in the town and on the farms. The people went out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they also found the man. The demons had gone out of him, and he was sitting there at the feet of Jesus. He had clothes on and was in his right mind. But the people were terrified. Then all who had seen the man healed told about it. Everyone from around Gerasa begged Jesus to leave because they were so frightened. When Jesus got into the boat to start back, the man who had been healed begged to go with him. But Jesus sent him off and said,
Go back home and tell everyone how much God has done for you.
The man then went all over town, telling everything that Jesus had done for him. Everyone had been waiting for Jesus, and when he came back, a crowd was there to welcome him. Just then, the man in charge of the Jewish meeting place came and kneeled down in front of Jesus. His name was Jairus, and he begged Jesus to come to his home because his 12-year-old child was dying. She was his only daughter. While Jesus was on his way, people were crowding all around him. In the crowd was a woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. She had spent everything she had on doctors, but none of them could make her well. As soon as she came up behind Jesus and barely touched his clothes, her bleeding stopped.
Who touched me?
Jesus asked. While everyone was denying it, Peter said,
Master, people are crowding all around and pushing you from every side.
But Jesus answered,
Someone touched me because I felt power going out from me.
The woman knew that she could not hide, so she came trembling and kneeled down in front of Jesus. She told everyone why she had touched him and that she had been healed right away. Jesus said to the woman,
You are now well because of your faith. May God give you peace.
While Jesus was speaking, someone came from Jairus' home and said,
Your daughter has died. Why bother the teacher anymore?
When Jesus heard this, he told Jairus,
Don't worry. Have faith and your daughter will get well.
Jesus went into the house, but he did not let anyone else go with him, except Peter, John, James, and the girl's father and mother. Everyone was crying and weeping for the girl, but Jesus said,
The child is not dead. She is just asleep.
The people laughed at him because they knew she was dead. Jesus took hold of the girl's hand and said,
Child, get up.
She came back to life and got right up. Jesus told them to give her something to eat. Her parents were surprised, but Jesus ordered them not to tell anyone what had happened. Luke 9. Jesus called together his 12 apostles and gave them complete power over all demons and diseases. Then he sent them to tell about God's kingdom and to heal the sick. He told them,
Don't take anything with you. Don't take a walking stick or a traveling bag or food or money or even a change of clothes. When you are welcomed into a home, stay there until you leave that town. If people won't welcome you, leave the town and shake the dust from your feet as a warning to them.
The apostles left and went from village to village, telling the good news and healing people everywhere. Herod the ruler heard about all that was happening, and he was worried. Some people were saying that John the Baptist had come back to life. Others were saying that Elijah had come, or that one of the prophets from long ago had come back to life. But Herod said,
I had John's head cut off. Who is this I hear so much about?
Herod was eager to meet Jesus. The apostles came back and told Jesus everything they had done. He then took them with him to the village of Bethsaida, where they could be alone. But a lot of people found out about this and followed him. Jesus welcomed them. He spoke to them about God's kingdom and healed everyone who was sick. Late in the afternoon, the 12 apostles came to Jesus and said,
"Send the crowd to the villages and farms around here. They need to find a place to stay and something to eat. There is nothing in this place. It is like a desert."
Jesus answered,
You give them something to eat.
but they replied,
We have only 5 small loaves of bread and 2 fish. If we're going to feed all these people, we will have to go and buy food.
There were about 5,000 men in the crowd. Jesus said to his disciples,
Have the people sit in groups of 50.
They did this, and all the people sat down. Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. He looked up toward heaven and blessed the food. Then he broke the bread and fish and handed them to his disciples to give to the people. Everyone ate all they wanted. What was left over filled 12 baskets. When Jesus was alone praying, his disciples came to him and he asked them.
What do people say about me?
They answered,
Some say that you are John the Baptist or Elijah, or a prophet from long ago who has come back to life.
Jesus then asked them.
But who do you say I am?
Peter answered,
You are the Messiah, sent from God.
Jesus strictly warned his disciples not to tell anyone what had happened. Jesus told his disciples,
The nation's leaders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law of Moses will make the Son of Man suffer terribly. They will reject him and kill him. But 3 days later, he will rise to life.
Then Jesus said to all the people,
If any of you want to be my followers, you must forget about yourself. You must take up your cross each day and follow me. If you want to save your life, you will destroy it. But if you give up your life for me, you will save it. What will you gain if you own the whole world, but destroy yourself or waste your life? If you are ashamed of me and my message, the Son of Man will be ashamed of you when he comes in his glory and in the glory of his Father and the holy angels. You can be sure that some of the people standing here will not die before they see God's kingdom.
About 8 days later, Jesus took Peter, John, and James with him and went up on a mountain to pray. While he was praying, his face changed, and his clothes became shining white. Suddenly Moses and Elijah were there speaking with him. They appeared in heavenly glory and talked about all that Jesus' death in Jerusalem would mean. Peter and the other 2 disciples had been sound asleep. All at once they woke up and saw how glorious Jesus was. They also saw the 2 men who were with him. Moses and Elijah were about to leave when Peter said to Jesus,
Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah.
But Peter did not know what he was talking about. While Peter was still speaking, a shadow from a cloud passed over them, and they were frightened as the cloud covered them. From the cloud a voice spoke,
This is my chosen son. Listen to what he says.
After the voice had spoken, Peter, John, and James saw only Jesus. For some time they kept quiet and did not say anything about what they had seen. The next day, Jesus and his 3 disciples came down from the mountain and were met by a large crowd. Just then, someone in the crowd shouted,
Teacher, please do something for my son. He is my only child. A demon often attacks him and makes him scream. It shakes him until he foams at the mouth, and it won't leave him until it has completely worn the boy out. I begged your disciples to force out the demon, but they couldn't do it.
Jesus said to them,
You people are stubborn and don't have any faith. How much longer must I be with you? Why do I have to put up with you?
Then Jesus said to the man,
Bring your son to me.
While the boy was being brought, the demon attacked him and made him shake all over. Jesus ordered the demon to stop. Then he healed the boy and gave him back to his father. Everyone was amazed at God's great power. While everyone was still amazed at what Jesus was doing, he said to his disciples,
Pay close attention to what I am telling you. The Son of Man will be handed over to his enemies.
But the disciples did not know what he meant. The meaning was hidden from them. They could not understand it, and they were afraid to ask. Jesus' disciples were arguing about which one of them was the greatest. Jesus knew what they were thinking, and he had a child stand there beside him. Then he said to his disciples,
When you welcome even a child because of me, you welcome me. And when you welcome me, you welcome the one who sent me. Whichever one of you is the most humble is the greatest.
John said,
Master, we saw a man using your name to force demons out of people, but we told him to stop because he's not one of us.
Don't stop him,
Jesus said.
Anyone who is not against you is for you.
Not long before it was time for Jesus to be taken up to heaven, he made up his mind to go to Jerusalem. He sent some messengers on ahead to a Samaritan village to get things ready for him. But he was on his way to Jerusalem, so the people there refused to welcome him. When the disciples James and John saw what was happening, they asked,
Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven to destroy these people?
But Jesus turned and corrected them for what they had said. Then they all went on to another village. Along the way, someone said to Jesus,
I'll go anywhere with you.
Jesus said,
Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man doesn't have a place to call his own.
Jesus told someone else to come with him, but the man said,
Lord, let me wait until I bury my father.
Jesus answered,
Let the dead take care of the dead while you go and tell about God's kingdom.
Then someone said to Jesus,
I want to go with you, Lord, but first let me go back and take care of things at home.
Jesus answered,
Anyone who starts plowing and keeps looking back isn't worth a thing in God's kingdom.
Luke 10.
Later, the Lord chose 72 other followers and sent them out 2 by 2 to every town and village where he was about to go. He said to them,
A large crop is in the fields, but there are only a few workers. Ask the Lord in charge of the harvest to send out workers to bring it in. Now go, but remember, I am sending you like lambs into a pack of wolves. Don't take along a money bag or a traveling bag or sandals. And don't waste time greeting people on the road. As soon as you enter a home, say, God bless this home with peace. If the people living there are peace-loving, your prayer for peace will bless them. But if they are not peace-loving, your prayer will return to you. Stay with the same family, eating and drinking whatever they give you, because workers are worth what they earn. Don't move around from house to house. If the people of a town welcome you, eat whatever they offer you. Heal their sick and say, God's kingdom will soon be here. But if the people of a town refuse to welcome you, go out into the street and say, We are shaking the dust from our feet as a warning to you. You can be sure that God's kingdom will soon be here. I tell you that on the day of judgment, the people of Sodom will get off easier than the people of that town. You people of Chorazin are in for trouble. You people of Bethsaida are also in for trouble. If the miracles that took place in your towns had happened in Tyre and Sidon, the people there would have turned to God long ago. They would have dressed in sackcloth and put ashes on their heads. On the day of judgment, the people of Tyre and Sidon will get off easier than you will. People of Capernaum, do you think you will be honored in heaven? Well, you will go down to hell. My followers, whoever listens to you is listening to me. Anyone who says no to you is saying no to me. And anyone who says no to me is really saying no to the one who sent me.
When the 72 followers returned, they were excited and said,
Lord, even the demons obeyed when we spoke in your name.
Jesus told them,
I saw Satan fall from heaven like a flash of lightning. I have given you the power to trample on snakes and scorpions, and to defeat the power of your enemy, Satan. Nothing can harm you. But don't be happy because evil spirits obey you. Be happy that your names are written in heaven."
At that same time, Jesus felt the joy that comes from the Holy Spirit, and he said,
"My Father, Lord of heaven and earth, I am grateful that you hid all this from wise and educated people and showed it to ordinary people. Yes, Father, that is what pleased you. My Father has given me everything, and he is the only one who knows the Son. The only one who really knows the Father is the Son. But the Son wants to tell others about the Father so that they can know him too."
Jesus then turned to his disciples and said to them in private,
"You are really blessed to see what you see. Many prophets and kings were eager to see what you see and to hear what you hear. But I tell you that they did not see or hear."
An expert in the law of Moses stood up and asked Jesus a question to see what he would say.
"Teacher,"
he asked,
"what must I do to have eternal life?"
Jesus answered,
"What is written in the Scriptures? How do you understand them?"
The man replied,
"The Scriptures say, 'Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind.' They also say, 'Love your neighbors as much as you love yourself.'"
Jesus said,
"You have given the right answer. If you do this, you will have eternal life."
But the man wanted to show that he knew what he was talking about. So he asked Jesus,
"Who are my neighbors?"
Jesus replied,
"As a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, robbers attacked him and grabbed everything he had. They beat him up and ran off, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, but when he saw the man, he walked by on the other side. Later, a temple helper came to the same place, but when he saw the man who had been beaten up, he also went by on the other side. A man from Samaria then came traveling along that road. When he saw the man, he felt sorry for him and went over to him. He treated his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put him on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next morning, he gave the innkeeper 2 silver coins and said, 'Please take care of the man. If you spend more than this on him, I will pay you when I return.'"
Then Jesus asked,
"Which one of these 3 people was a real neighbor to the man who was beaten up by robbers?"
The teacher answered,
"The one who showed pity."
Jesus said,
"Go and do the same."
The Lord and his disciples were traveling along and came to a village. When they got there, a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary who sat down in front of the Lord and was listening to what he said. Martha was worried about all that had to be done. Finally, she went to Jesus and said,
"Lord, doesn't it bother you that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to come and help me."
The Lord answered,
"Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about so many things, but only one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen what is best, and it will not be taken away from her."
Luke 11. When Jesus had finished praying, one of his disciples said to him,
"Lord, teach us to pray, just as John taught his followers to pray."
So Jesus told them,
"Pray in this way: Father, help us to honor your name. Come and set up your kingdom. Give us each day the food we need. Forgive our sins as we forgive everyone who has done wrong to us. And keep us from being tempted."
Then Jesus went on to say,
Suppose one of you goes to a friend in the middle of the night and says, "Let me borrow 3 loaves of bread. A friend of mine has dropped in and I don't have a thing for him to eat." And suppose your friend answers, "Don't bother me. The door is bolted and my children and I are in bed. I cannot get up to give you something." He may not get up and give you the bread just because you are his friend, but he will get up and give you as much as you need simply because you are not ashamed to keep on asking. So I tell you to ask, and you will receive. Search, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened for you. Everyone who asks will receive. Everyone who searches will find, and the door will be opened for everyone who knocks. Which one of you fathers would give your hungry child a snake if the child asked for a fish? Which one of you would give your child a scorpion if the child asked for an egg? As bad as you are, you still know how to give good gifts to your children. But your heavenly Father is even more ready to give the Holy Spirit to anyone who asks.
Jesus forced a demon out of a man who could not talk. After the demon had gone out, the man started speaking, and the crowds were amazed. But some people said,
"He forces out demons by the power of Beelzebul, the ruler of the demons."
Others wanted to put Jesus to the test, so they asked him to show them a sign from God. Jesus knew what they were thinking, and he said,
A kingdom where people fight each other will end up in ruin, and a family that fights will break up. If Satan fights against himself, how can his kingdom last? Yet you say that I force out demons by the power of Beelzebul. If I use his power to force out demons, whose power do your own followers use to force them out? They are the ones who will judge you. But if I use God's power to force out demons, it proves that God's kingdom has already come to you. When a strong man arms himself and guards his home, everything he owns is safe. But if a stronger man comes and defeats him, he will carry off the weapons in which the strong man trusted. Then he will divide with others what he has taken. If you are not on my side, you are against me. If you don't gather in the crop with me, you scatter it. When an evil spirit leaves a person, it travels through the desert looking for a place to rest. But when it doesn't find a place, it says, I will go back to the home I left. When it gets there and finds the place clean and fixed up, it goes off and finds 7 other evil spirits even worse than itself. They all come and make their home there, and that person ends up in worse shape than before.
While Jesus was still talking, a woman in the crowd spoke up.
The woman who gave birth to you and nursed you is blessed.
Jesus replied,
That's true. But the people who are really blessed are the ones who hear and obey God's message.
As crowds were gathering around Jesus, he said,
You people of today are evil. You keep looking for a sign from God. But what happened to Jonah is the only sign you will be given. Just as Jonah was a sign to the people of Nineveh, the Son of Man will be a sign to the people of today. When the judgment comes, the Queen of the South will stand there with you and condemn you. She traveled a long way to hear Solomon's wisdom, and yet here is something far greater than Solomon. The people of Nineveh will also stand there with you and condemn you. They turned to God when Jonah preached, and yet here is something far greater than Jonah. No one lights a lamp and then hides it or puts it under a clay pot. A lamp is put on a lampstand so that everyone who comes into the house can see the light. Your eyes are the lamp for your body. When your eyes are good, you have all the light you need. But when your eyes are bad, everything is dark. So be sure that your light is not darkness. If you have light and nothing is dark, then light will be everywhere, as when a lamp shines brightly on you.
When Jesus finished speaking, a Pharisee invited him home for a meal. Jesus went and sat down to eat. The Pharisee was surprised that he did not wash his hands before eating. So the Lord said to him,
You Pharisees clean the outside of cups and dishes, but on the inside you are greedy and evil. You fools! Didn't God make both the outside and the inside? If you would only give what you have to the poor, everything you do would please God. You Pharisees are in for trouble. You give God 1/10 of the spices from your gardens, such as mint and rue, but you cheat people, and you don't love God. You should be fair and kind to others, and still give 1/10 to God. You Pharisees are in for trouble. You love the front seats in the meeting places, and you like to be greeted with honor in the market. But you are in for trouble. You are like unmarked graves that people walk on without even knowing it.
A teacher of the law of Moses spoke up.
Teacher, you said cruel things about us.
Jesus replied,
You teachers are also in for trouble. You load people down with heavy burdens, but you won't lift a finger to help them carry the loads. Yes, you are really in for trouble. You build monuments to honor the prophets your own people murdered long ago. You must think that was the right thing for your people to do, or else you would not have built monuments for the prophets they murdered. Because of your evil deeds, the wisdom of God said, I will send prophets and apostles to you, but you will murder some and mistreat others. You people living today will be punished for all the prophets who have been murdered since the beginning of the world. This includes every prophet from the time of Abel to the time of Zechariah, who was murdered between the altar and the temple. You people will certainly be punished for all of this. You teachers of the law of Moses are really in for trouble. You carry the keys to the door of knowledge about God, but you never go in, and you keep others from going in.
Jesus was about to leave, but the teachers and the Pharisees wanted to get even with him. They tried to make him say what he thought about other things so that they could catch him saying something wrong. Luke 12. As thousands of people crowded around Jesus and were stepping on each other, he told his disciples,
Be sure to guard against the dishonest teaching of the Pharisees. It is their way of fooling people. Everything that is hidden will be found out, and every secret will be known. Whatever you say in the dark will be heard when it is day. Whatever you whisper in a closed room will be shouted from the housetops. My friends, don't be afraid of people. They can kill you, but after that there is nothing else they can do. God is the one you must fear. Not only can he take your life, but he can throw you into hell. God is certainly the one you should fear. 5 sparrows are sold for just 2 pennies, but God does not forget a one of them. Even the hairs on your head are counted, so don't be afraid. You are worth much more than many sparrows. If you tell others that you belong to me, the Son of Man will tell God's angels that you are my followers. But if you reject me, you will be rejected in front of them. If you speak against the Son of Man, you can be forgiven. But if you speak against the Holy Spirit, you cannot be forgiven. When you are brought to trial in the Jewish meeting places or before rulers or officials, don't worry about how you will defend yourselves or what you will say. At that time, the Holy Spirit will tell you what to say.
A man in a crowd said to Jesus,
Teacher, tell my brother to give me my share of what our father left us when he died.
Jesus answered,
Who gave me the right to settle arguments between you and your brother?
Then he said to the crowd,
Don't be greedy. Owning a lot of things won't make your life safe.
So Jesus told them this story.
A rich man's farm produced a big crop, and he said to himself, What can I do? I don't have a place large enough to store everything. Later he said, Now I know what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, where I can store all my grain and other goods. Then I'll say to myself, You have stored up enough good things to last for years to come. Live it up, eat, drink, and enjoy yourself. But God said to him, You fool. Tonight you will die. Then who will get what you have stored up? This is what happens to people who store up everything for themselves, but are poor in the sight of God.
Jesus said to his disciples,
I tell you not to worry about your life. Don't worry about having something to eat or wear. Life is more than food or clothing. Look at the crows. They don't plant or harvest, and they don't have storehouses or barns. But God takes care of them. You are much more important than any birds. Can worry make you live longer? If you don't have power over small things, why worry about everything else? Look how the wild flowers grow. They don't work hard to make their clothes. But I tell you that Solomon, with all his wealth, was not as well clothed as one of these flowers. God gives such beauty to everything that grows in the fields, even though it is here today and thrown into a fire tomorrow. Won't He do even more for you? You have such little faith. Don't keep worrying about having something to eat or drink. Only people who don't know God are always worrying about such things. Your Father knows what you need, but put God's work first, and these things will be yours as well. My little group of disciples, don't be afraid. Your Father wants to give you the kingdom. Sell what you have and give the money to the poor. Make yourselves money bags that never wear out. Make your treasure safe in heaven, where thieves cannot steal it and moths cannot destroy it. Your heart will always be where your treasure is. Be ready and keep your lamps burning, just like those servants who wait up for their master to return from a wedding feast. As soon as he comes and knocks, they open the door for him. Servants are fortunate if their master finds them awake and ready when he comes. I promise you that he will get ready and have his servants sit down so he can serve them. Those servants are really fortunate if their master finds them ready, even though he comes late at night or early in the morning. You would surely not let a thief break into your home if you knew when the thief was coming. So always be ready. You don't know when the Son of Man will come.
Peter asked Jesus, "Did you say this just for us or for everyone?" The Lord answered,
Who are faithful and wise servants? Who are the ones the master will put in charge of giving the other servants their food supplies at the proper time? Servants are fortunate if their master comes and finds them doing their job. A servant who is always faithful will surely be put in charge of everything the master owns. But suppose one of the servants thinks that the master will not return until late. Suppose that servant starts beating all the other servants and eats and drinks and gets drunk. If that happens, the master will surely come on a day and at a time when the servant least expects him. That servant will then be punished and thrown out with the servants who cannot be trusted. If servants are not ready or willing to do what their master wants them to do, they will be beaten hard. But servants who don't know what their master wants them to do will not be beaten so hard for doing wrong. If God has been generous with you, He will expect you to serve Him well. But if He has been more than generous, He will expect you to serve Him even better. I came to set fire to the earth, and I surely wish it were already on fire. I am going to be put to a hard test, and I will have to suffer a lot of pain until it is over. Do you think that I came to bring peace to earth? No, indeed. I came to make people choose sides. A family of 5 will be divided, with 2 of them against the other 3. Fathers and sons will turn against one another, and mothers and daughters will do the same. Mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law will also turn against each other.
Jesus said to all the people,
As soon as you see a cloud coming up in the west, you say, It's going to rain. And it does. When the south wind blows, you say, It's going to get hot. And it does. Are you trying to fool someone? You can predict the weather by looking at the earth and sky, but you don't really know what's going on right now. Why don't you understand the right thing to do? When someone accuses you of something, try to settle things before you are taken to court. If you don't, you will be dragged before the judge. Then the judge will hand you over to the jailer, and you will be locked up. You won't get out until you have paid the last cent you owe.
Luke 13. About this same time, Jesus was told that Pilate had given orders for some people from Galilee to be killed while they were offering sacrifices. Jesus replied,
Do you think that these people were worse sinners than everyone else in Galilee just because of what happened to them? Not at all. But you can be sure that if you don't turn back to God, every one of you will also be killed. What about those 18 people who died when the tower in Siloam fell on them? Do you think they were worse than everyone else in Jerusalem? Not at all. But you can be sure that if you don't turn back to God, every one of you will also die.
Jesus then told them this story.
A man had a fig tree growing in his vineyard. One day, he went out to pick some figs, but he didn't find any. So he said to the gardener, For 3 years I have come looking for figs on this tree, and I haven't found any yet. Chop it down. Why should it take up space?" The gardener answered, "Master, leave it for another year. I'll dig around it and put some manure on it to make it grow. Maybe it will have figs on it next year. If it doesn't, you can have it cut down."
One Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in a Jewish meeting place, and a woman was there who had been crippled by an evil spirit for 18 years. She was completely bent over and could not straighten up. When Jesus saw the woman, he called her over and said,
"You are now well."
He placed his hands on her, and right away she stood up straight and praised God. The man in charge of the meeting place was angry because Jesus had healed someone on the Sabbath. So he said to the people,
"Each week has 6 days when we can work. Come and be healed on one of those days, but not on the Sabbath."
The Lord replied,
"Are you trying to fool someone? Won't any one of you untie your ox or donkey and lead it out to drink on a Sabbath? This woman belongs to the family of Abraham, but Satan has kept her bound for 18 years. Isn't it right to set her free on the Sabbath?"
Jesus' words made all his enemies ashamed, but everyone else in the crowd was happy about the wonderful things he was doing. Jesus said,
"What is God's kingdom like? What can I compare it with? It is like what happens when someone plants a mustard seed in a garden. The seed grows as big as a tree, and birds nest in its branches."
Then Jesus said,
"What can I compare God's kingdom with? It is like what happens when a woman mixes yeast into 3 batches of flour. Finally, all the dough rises."
As Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem, he taught the people in the towns and villages. Someone asked him,
"Lord, are only a few people going to be saved?"
Jesus answered,
"Do all you can to go in by the narrow door. A lot of people will try to get in, but will not be able to. Once the owner of the house gets up and locks the door, you will be left standing outside. You will knock on the door and say, 'Sir, open the door for us.' But the owner will answer, 'I don't know a thing about you.' Then you will start saying, 'We dined with you, and you taught in our streets.' But he will say, 'I really don't know who you are. Get away from me, all you evil people.' Then when you have been thrown outside, you will weep and grit your teeth because you will see Abraham and Isaac and all the prophets in God's kingdom. People will come from all directions and sit down to feast in God's kingdom. There, the ones who are now least important will be the most important, and those who are now most important will be least important."
At that time, some Pharisees came to Jesus and said,
"You had better get away from here. Herod wants to kill you."
Jesus said to them,
"Go tell that fox, I am going to force out demons and heal people today and tomorrow, and 3 days later I will be through. But I am going on my way today and tomorrow and the next day. After all, Jerusalem is the place where prophets are killed. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, your people have killed the prophets and have stoned the messengers who were sent to you. I have often wanted to gather your people as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you wouldn't let me. Now your temple will be deserted. You will not see me again until the time when you say, 'Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord.'"
Luke 14. One Sabbath, Jesus was having dinner in the home of an important Pharisee, and everyone was carefully watching Jesus. All of a sudden, a man with swollen legs stood up in front of him. Jesus turned and asked the Pharisees and the teachers of the law of Moses,
"Is it right to heal on the Sabbath?"
But they did not say a word. Jesus took hold of the man. Then he healed him and sent him away. Afterwards, Jesus asked the people,
"If your son or ox falls into a well, wouldn't you pull him out right away, even on the Sabbath?"
There was nothing they could say. Jesus saw how the guests had tried to take the best seats, so he told them,
When you are invited to a wedding feast, don't sit in the best place. Someone more important may have been invited. Then the one who invited you will come and say, "Give your place to this other guest." You will be embarrassed and will have to sit in the worst place. When you are invited to be a guest, go and sit in the worst place. Then the one who invited you may come and say, "My friend, take a better seat." You will then be honored in front of all the other guests. If you put yourself above others, you will be put down. But if you humble yourself, you will be honored.
Then Jesus said to the man who had invited him,
When you give a dinner or a banquet, don't invite your friends and family and relatives and rich neighbors. If you do, they will invite you in return and you will be paid back. When you give a feast, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame and the blind. They cannot pay you back, but God will bless you and reward you when his people rise from death.
After Jesus had finished speaking, one of the guests said,
"The greatest blessing of all is to be at the banquet in God's kingdom."
Jesus told him,
A man once gave a great banquet and invited a lot of guests. When the banquet was ready, he sent a servant to tell the guests, "Everything is ready. Please come." One guest after another started making excuses. The first one said, "I bought some land and I've got to look it over. Please, excuse me." Another guest said, "I bought 5 teams of oxen and I need to try them out. Please excuse me." Still another guest said, "I have just gotten married and I can't be there." The servant told his master what happened, and the master became so angry that he said, "Go as fast as you can to every street and alley in town. Bring in everyone who is poor or crippled or blind or lame." When the servant returned, he said, "Master, I've done what you told me, and there is still plenty of room for more people." His master then told him, "Go out along the back roads and fence rows and make people come in so that my house will be full. Not one of the guests I first invited will get even a bite of my food."
Large crowds were walking along with Jesus when he turned and said,
"You cannot be my disciple unless you love me more than you love your father and mother, your wife and children and your brothers and sisters. You cannot come with me unless you love me more than you love your own life. You cannot be my disciple unless you carry your own cross and come with me. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. What is the first thing you will do? Won't you sit down and figure out how much it will cost and if you have enough money to pay for it? Otherwise, you will start building the tower but not be able to finish. Then everyone who sees what is happening will laugh at you. They will say, 'You started building, but could not finish the job.' What will a king do if he has only 10,000 soldiers to defend himself against a king who is about to attack him with 20,000 soldiers? Before he goes out to battle, won't he first sit down and decide if he can win? If he thinks he won't be able to defend himself, he will send messengers and ask for peace while the other king is still a long way off. So then, you cannot be my disciple unless you give away everything you own. Salt is good, but if it no longer tastes like salt, how can it be made to taste salty again? It is no longer good for the soil or even for the manure pile. People simply throw it out. If you have ears, pay attention."
Luke 15. Tax collectors and sinners were all crowding around to listen to Jesus. So the Pharisees and the teachers of the law of Moses started grumbling.
"This man is friendly with sinners. He even eats with them."
Then Jesus told them this story.
If any of you has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will you do? Won't you leave the 99 in the field and go look for the lost sheep until you find it? And when you find it, you will be so glad that you will put it on your shoulder and carry it home. Then you will call in your friends and neighbors and say, "Let's celebrate. I've found my lost sheep."
Jesus said,
In the same way, there is more happiness in heaven because of one sinner who turns to God than over 99 good people who don't need to.
Jesus told the people another story.
What will a woman do if she has 10 silver coins and loses one of them? Won't she light a lamp, sweep the floor, and look carefully until she finds it? Then she will call in her friends and neighbors and say, "Let's celebrate. I've found the coin I lost."
Jesus said,
in the same way, God's angels are happy when even one person turns to him.
Jesus also told them another story.
Once, a man had 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, "Give me my share of the property." So the father divided his property between his 2 sons. Not long after that, the younger son packed up everything he owned and left for a foreign country, where he wasted all his money in wild living. He had spent everything when a bad famine spread through that whole land. Soon, he had nothing to eat. He went to work for a man in that country, and the man sent him out to take care of his pigs. He would have been glad to eat what the pigs were eating, but no one gave him a thing. Finally, he came to his senses and said, "My father's workers have plenty to eat, and here I am starving to death. I will leave and go to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against God in heaven and against you. I am no longer good enough to be called your son. Treat me like one of your workers.' The younger son got up and started back to his father. But when he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt sorry for him. He ran to his son and hugged and kissed him. The son said, 'Father, I have sinned against God in heaven and against you. I am no longer good enough to be called your son.' But his father said to the servants, 'Hurry and bring the best clothes and put them on him. Give him a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet. Get the best calf and prepare it so we can eat and celebrate. This son of mine was dead, but now has come back to life. He was lost and has now been found.' And they began to celebrate. The older son had been out in the field, but when he came near the house, he heard the music and dancing. So he called one of the servants over and asked, 'What's going on here?' The servant answered, 'Your brother has come home safe and sound, and your father ordered us to kill the best calf.' The older brother got so mad that he would not even go into the house. His father came out and begged him to go in, but he said to his father, 'For years I have worked for you like a slave and have always obeyed you. But you have never even given me a little goat so that I could give a dinner for my friends. This other son of yours wasted your money on bad women, and now that he has come home, you ordered the best calf to be killed for a feast.' His father replied, 'My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we should be glad and celebrate. Your brother was dead, but he is now alive. He was lost and has now been found.'